Okay, I'm going to start the webinar. All right. Go to the beginning slide. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the council meeting for Thursday, April.
We're only,
Can you hear
the attendees are only just starting to come in.
I'll wait.
I think you're good.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Borough of Crafton's council meeting for Thursday, April 8th, 2021. We're going to proceed with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right. Now that we've called the meeting to order, we're going to proceed to the roll call.
Mr. Amendola is absent. Mr. Chandler?
Here.
Mr. Kraus?
Here.
Mr. Crown?
Present.
Mr. Lavasser?
Here.
Mr. Oliverio?
Here.
Ms. Perry?
Here.
Mayor Bloom?
Here.
Solicitor Corbel?
Here.
Engineer Minsterman?
Here.
And myself. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Moving forward to the consent agenda, we have the approval of the minutes for March 25th, 2021, and the bills list for April 8th, 2021. Move to approve the April 8th, 2021 consent agenda.
I move. Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All that oppose? Hearing none that oppose, approval of the consent agenda, thank you. At this time, we'll move forward to public comments on the agenda items. At this time, citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue appearing on today's agenda. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before the council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please state your name and physical address for the record.
Yes, just please raise your hand if you would like to speak. And I believe we have 5 attendees at tonight's meeting. Yeah, good. That's what I'm seeing. So just please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands being raised. So do not believe we have any public comment tonight.
Okay, and we'll have another opportunity at the end of this meeting for items that were not on the agenda. So with that being said, I wanted to make known to the public that we had an executive session concerning personnel prior to the commencement of this meeting. No actions were taken. In addition, the engineers have been steadfastly at work, working on our different Alcosan projects, and they're going to speak to some of the details that are on our agenda this evening. In addition, there is a demolition that's moving forward for Borough Avenue. That area has been cordoned off, and that issue will be remediated within the next month. With that, I'm going to keep my remarks brief and move on to the mayor's report.
I spoke with the chief of police prior to the meeting. He said everything's working well and we have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, Mayor. Engineer Minsterman.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you mentioned, there is activity related to the grow projects. One specifically is the Crafton Boulevard grow project. We got excellent bids for that project. The total bid is 3.273 million. It was under the estimate that we had projected. We are also recommending and have sent the recommendation of award letter to council, which includes the base bid and all of the additional bids. We broke out the additional bids so that in case the bids were high, we would be able to pare down some of the work in order to stay within a prescribed budget. Turns out with the bids that we received, we were able to include all the additional bids, and that includes the streetscape along Crafton Boulevard, which is up by Baldwick, the Sterrett Street reconstruction from Bar to Poplar, bar reconstruction from Sterrett to about 300 feet up the bar reconstruction from Willard to Harris, and bar reconstruction from Kiever to Harris. We are also moving ahead with not only awarding that, but beginning to prepare a groundbreaking celebration. So we'll work on that, pick a date sometime before the contractor comes, or maybe we'll get them to bring some equipment in. We'll see, and propose a date and get out with council and whoever you want to invite Alcosan, obviously, maybe some of the local reps might be interested to come out to kick this project off. So we'll get some more details on that shortly. So any questions on that before I move on?
Question. So to summarize, this is more of a statement / question. All of that for 3.25 million?
Yes, everything.
And what was your original estimate for that amount?
We were, the engineer's estimate, we were pushing around 4 million. But
So they came in a million under because of just good graces, or they were really nice that day?
Times are lean out there is what we're hearing. Contractors are very aggressive in their bidding right now. The engineer's estimate is based on past costs, past contracts. Even though we said, hey, it estimated out at 4, we knew it was coming in lower. Contractors are talking about aggressive bids. We're seeing some serious aggressive bids. So we don't try to guess what the bid is, the low bid will be, because there's economic factors that we just can't predict. So we go on history, we go on unit prices, and that's, if this were not post-COVID times, you'd be paying closer to 4 million. So once again, Crafton is in the right place in the right time. And this is a contractor, independent enterprise, which has been in Crafton many times, did the South Grandview project, has done paving projects. So they are familiar with Crafton. They like working here. They're close by. So we just, all the stars aligned, and it looks like, just really great pricing.
Well, I would submit that the stars only aligned because we put ourselves in a really great position, but that is great to hear that we are able to take advantage of some of the market conditions to bring a great price back to Crafton. For the Grandview work is great. So if we get some folks coming in here that are familiar with the community and what needs to be done, that's excellent to hear. So thank you.
Yeah, great news. You're welcome. And once again, it's the leadership of council that's moving this project ahead, and moving it into the right spot at the right time. So all good stuff. Great things to report. So next is, unless there are any other questions, next is Woodlawn and Fountain Grove grant. This grant's in the process, we're in the process of finalizing the construction documents. The bidding process is anticipated for April, advertised around the 15th. and the 23rd. You have to advertise twice. We got a bid opening on May 19th. And with that opening and then the recommendation for award and the approval at the council meeting, we're looking to start in July. So that is another substantial project. Right now, we had estimated for the grant, let's see, the total approved project cost is 2.44 million for that. And of that 2.4 million, Crafton will pay 365,000. So you're paying 15% of that project as well because of the grant through Grow. So anticipate, sometime July through the summer and winter, Woodlawn and Fountain will be under construction.
Thank you.
Now there are two new projects, not new to you, but new submittals for the Cycle 6 Grow grant process. And so those are called letters of interest. You submit the letters of interest, and then the Alcosan reviews them, and they decide if the letter of interest is strong enough to allow a submittal of a grant application. In the past, we've always got approvals through either the letter of interest or a pre-construction planning meeting with Alcosan. So in this case, we expect to get a nod to go ahead and submit the Broadhead and the Busway Grow grant, as well as the Crafton Park Grow grant. And the Crafton Park Grow grant, we've talked about this. It's obviously Crafton Park, and it's collecting all that stormwater and getting a pipe down essentially to possibly drilling a pipe down to Chartiers Creek to collect and discharge all that water to keep it out of the combined system. For Fountain and Chartiers sewer separation Grow, so that project has been on hiatus because of the weather, but the contractor returned to the project the week of the 19th to finish the pavement restorations. There's still a couple punch list items that need to be finalized, but they'll be taken care of in the next coming weeks, and we will be able to close that project out. So that is a summary of the Grow projects. The rest of the items on the report remain as reported. Nothing that I can think of worth highlighting other than the grant applications, although I think someone will mention later about the Public Works Building grant submittal, and we will continue to process that depending on council's wish on how to move forward. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Engineer Minsterman. We really appreciate the hard work you and your team have been doing at Gateway to support us here.
You're welcome. Pleasure.
I'm moving forward to the solicitor's report.
Thanks, Mr. President. I don't have anything to report other than to announce that council held an executive session prior to this meeting to discuss contract and personnel matters. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. All right. Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple items to report. The Bar Avenue demo, which we accepted the low bid at last meeting. The bidder is working with the county to obtain the asbestos permit. They are looking to get that permit April 16th, and then they will start immediately thereafter. The other item, the financial statements for 2020 have been presented to the borough from our auditor, Mara Dissel. I've uploaded those to the OneDrive in a new folder just called audits, but they will be doing a presentation. We're scheduling that, so they'll present the findings to council at an upcoming meeting. Third, the Planning Commission will be having a small presentation at our next meeting as well to talk about some of the initiatives they've been working on. And the last thing I have, there was a couple street opening repairs that needed to be corrected. One was a water company and one was a private sewer company. They've both been contacted and those are being scheduled. I don't have a date for both of them, but both entities are putting those on their work requests. So that's all of my report. Is there any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sample. Now we proceed to the business agenda. We have the Act 152 demolition grant application. The Act 152 Allegheny County Blight Removal Program is accepting application for demolition and blight remediation planning. The borough is applying for the demolition of 11 Fountain Street and 64 South Grandview Avenue. Next page.
Hold on one second. If you hold 1 second. There we go.
Thank you. All right. Therefore, we have a motion to move to adopt resolution 2021-07 requesting a grant of $25,000 from the act for the demolition of 11 Fallon Street and 64 South Grandview Avenue.
So moved.
Seconded.
Any questions or comments?
Philip,
Yes, I have. Sorry. Whoever
would
interrupted.
the grant cover the entire demolition costs for both?
That is our hope. Usually these run about $10,000 to $15,000. So between the two, depending on, again, the luck of the bidders, the season. But yes, we are hoping that this would cover the entire project.
I have a question. So you're saying it's a grant for both or
Yes,
each?
we are submitting for 2 properties. The grant request is $25,000.
Right, and 64 South Grandview, isn't that a larger apartment building?
It is a duplex. So there might, again, there's factors.
Yeah.
Right,
Well, I
so-
would just caution everybody. I probably could see us having to pick up some of the tab here, but they're both items that need to be addressed. Coletta?
Yeah, so I'm assuming that the 25,000 is the grant limit.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I have some comments and questions here, if I may, Mr. President.
Yes, you have the floor, Mr. Kraus.
Thank you. So I wasn't aware of 64 South Grandview being slated for demolition. What's the issue with the property that we need to demolish it other than, it's unsafe for human habitation? In other words, why are we not taking it to sheriff's sale, seeing if someone in the private market wants to rehab it? I mean, we're in the midst of a housing crisis and Crafton is not immune to that. And that's one of the streets in which we have kind of an aesthetic here in Crafton that I would think that we would want to, we would hesitate before opening that giant field in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So is there nothing that can be done with the property?
It had been identified by the code enforcement and building inspector department as a condemnation. And it's, in their opinion, that on the list that we've had slated for the demos in the borough, this has been on that list.
So there is no way to not circumvent it, but there's no way that, it's something simply, because I've seen personally, now this is anecdotal, I'm just a volunteer here, but I've seen a lot of properties in which, yes, they need to be condemned. I'm looking at it on Google Street View right now, and I'm going to drive it tonight. I've seen a lot of properties, whether it's in Crafton or Pennsylvania or Pittsburgh, in which they definitely need to be knocked down. There's no question. And I've seen a lot that are questionable, that are on the boundary line, only because the entities, the taxing entities, the borough, the school district, what have you, choose to knock it down as opposed to figure out another avenue. So is there no way to figure out another avenue for this property?
I will say that we can look at the grant is due. I don't have anyways, the grants are due Friday after our Thursday meeting. So we can push these resolutions off, or I can come back to the board with an assessment from our building inspector.
Is it
concerning
owe
the
on back
property.
taxes, Doug?
Yes, there is significant, yes, there's back taxes on the property.
Does it owe in back taxes for Carlington?
I just know that they owe us back taxes.
The
That property.
property owners are deceased. But the property owners at 64 are deceased and have been.
Right, and they have heirs that live down the street that I guess this thing's titled in probate or surrogate's court or however it may be. I guess so with that, I mean, I am a little surprised that, you know, with regards to South Grandview being, you know, slated for demo, but my question is, there's one on Rogers as well that is going through the side yard program. Is that one that we could put in as an alternate, or how does this work?
Yes, you could put that in. I mean, like I said, we can wait until the next meeting to address these. If there's questions with the.
Mr. Minsterman has his hand up, as do I.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not, yes, I got to pay attention to that. My apologies. We'll go with Colette at first, or yes, or Rick?
Yeah, let's go with Rick first.
I was going to suggest that, well, first comment is the other street that you mentioned, Phil. Has it been run through the process? Can you take ownership to demolish it? Those questions, you know what that's like. So maybe that's already done. Speaking out of turn, I don't know. But the other thought is on South Grandview. You could leave it in the grant. We can always not tear it down when the time comes. But this grant's going to take months, so we would have time at that point to do some research, maybe to advertise. I don't know, draw some attention to it, and see if you can go through that process. And the only time you're going to have to make the decision is when you accept the grant. And like I said, I'm sure even the grant agency would be glad to see the house was saved. Versus, you know, tearing it down. So I don't know, I'd suggest leaving it in, and it'll give you a lot of time before this grant's approved to try to save it.
Okay, so and with regards to the property on Rogers.
I'm sorry, Miss Perry had her hand up too.
Sorry, I didn't see that.
So my question was a technical one. Is Mr. Minsterman mentioned we have quite a bit of time. If we were to say save that property and still get the grant, would we be in a position to substitute a different property, or would we just need to accept grant money for the remaining property on Fountain?
We 99% certain that we would be able to switch, because like Mr. Minsterman had mentioned, these grants take over a year, and things change during that period. So we would be able to substitute another house for it, another property.
Okay, thank you. So basically, to summarize, we are putting an application for the maximum grant amount to demolish up to 2 properties. And these are the 2 that we have identified at this moment. We've had a request from Mr. Kraus to see if there is some other disposition beyond demolition for one of these properties. And Mr. Minsterman has said that we have plenty of time to do that, so that there's no harm, no foul if we tonight pass the motion to make the grant application. Have I stated that correctly?
Yes, very much. So we do have a motion and a second on the resolution.
All right.
One question here. Sorry, guys, to jump in. I was going to put the hand up, but I couldn't get it quick enough before you voted. What about putting Rogers on if it is processed? If it's through the process, could we put it on? Put 3 buildings. You're only going to get 25,000. You could just decide not to do one if all three of them were ready to be demoed. You could bail out on one, put the 25,000 on the other two. You could put it on all three and pay the difference. Maybe South Grandview falls out, so you wouldn't have to switch. So if you threw three in, that's an option too. Just throwing that out before you close the discussion.
So the question is, do we have time?
So-
You said, but due by Friday?
The Friday after our next meeting. So we could,
Okay.
Right,
we
but-
could pass an additional resolution to include Rogers.
Why don't we, as the motion maker and second, restate the motion? I believe that's what the process is, Mr. Corbel?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I believe I was the motion, and was Mr. Crown the second?
Mr. Kraus, I believe.
Mr.
Or
Kraus.
no, was it? Yes, Mr. Kraus.
Mr. Kraus, okay, I misheard that. So basically, what we're suggesting is to amend the motion to read a grant for 25,000 for the act, from the act for the demolition of 11 Fountain Street, 64 South Grandview Avenue, and the address on Rogers is what?
I don't have that in front of me.
52, I believe, or 56. It's a 5 in an even number.
Okay,
We
so
will
the
need- we will
property-
need to be specific on the motion.
Right. So we'd have to look it up. But
So how quickly can someone look that up?
I can do that.
Thank you.
so according to Google, it's 52 Rogers Avenue, but I'll stand correct if someone can correct that.
No, I believe you're correct. I believe it is 52. Because we also had this go through planning commission for side yard program.
Well, it's, okay, so to add to the motion, the 52 Rogers. And then would the person who seconded?
I'm fine with that. Yeah, fine with that.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So any additional conversation? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All that oppose? Hearing none that oppose, motion passes. All right, so we'll amend this on the fly here. Motion to adopt resolution 2021-08, identifying 11 Fountain Street, 64 South Grandview, and 52 Rogers as blighted properties.
So moved.
Second.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All that oppose? Hearing none that oppose, motion passes. All right. So this is good news. CITF grant award. Crafton Borough has been awarded a $200,000 grant of a maximum of $250,000 by the Community Infrastructure and Tourism Fund. The grant is to be applied to the planned construction of a new Department of Public Works garage at the existing DPW facility, a project defined on the bond project schedule. The proposed project will include a new structure that will be approximately 5,000 square feet and renovation of the existing Public Works garage located at 300 Chartiers Avenue. So I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Fontana, our state senator, and our state representative, Mr. Dan Deasy, for assisting Crafton Borough in securing these funds. We really appreciate all the support that they have offered us over the past several years. Again, this is much needed. So again, truly want to thank our state senator and state representative for everything they've done here to help us secure this and the grants that we've received specifically for the Crafton Borough building as well. So again, great job all the way around on the administration team and at the engineer's office for getting this in such short notice. So therefore, I move to accept the 200,000 CITF grant award for the Public Works Garage project.
Second.
All right, any questions, comments?
Well, Phil can't make that motion. Someone has to make the motion.
I was gonna say, I move.
I'll second.
All right, we're good.
Yeah, I was a little surprised by that.
I was like, well, that's weird. We didn't do that before.
Yeah, actually, Doug, I was curious, you started writing the motions like this. Is there a particular?
Oh,
It's
I
okay. You're just
apologize.
excited. It's fine. It's all right. It's
Moving
between,
on.
Yeah.
Phil, all you should do is just say, can I have a motion to accept the blah, 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 blah. And then someone
Yeah.
can say, so moved, and then someone says second.
Yeah, I was like, well, maybe Doug knows better.
no, that's just a holdover from another place. So yes, well, I'll address it.
All right,
Okay.
thank you. All right. Yeah, I've been trying to not read that part.
I apologize. Yes.
All right, so we had a first and a second. All right. Any questions, comments? I'll make a comment here. We're going to be having an ad hoc committee, and we're going to discuss that here further down the items on discussion items. But Mr. Chandler and Mr. Crown, we're going to be working with the engineer and Mr. Stample on spearheading this project. There was a lot of conversation last year about it. We've scaled down the project quite a bit. So I look forward to the collaboration there and getting the plans slated for future work. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All that oppose? Hearing none that oppose, motion passes. All right, we have the 2021 road paving program to award the 2021 Crafton Borough paving program to independent enterprises in the amount of $213,633.75.
So moved.
I second.
All right. Questions, comments? I'll ask a question. Engineer Minsterman, in the event that some of these street openings don't get reconciled with the proper utility or party, is it possible to add quantity to remedy the issues that were caused by that through this contract? Is there some flexibility here?
There is from a contract perspective, but the problem is the milling machine is a beast, and you can sometimes track it through the community if it's not too far. Otherwise, it has to be trailered, and loading and tying down and transporting and unloading and loading, for a 30-foot long section is very expensive. So if there are one or two, we may be able to talk them into it before they pull the machine. I can't say for sure. Yes, if you're willing to pay the price, but the price might be a little scary. So I know we're working hard on pressuring the folks that owe us through the street ordinance, the proper restoration. So the good news is we have time. We can work on that. If we fail in one or two, we probably can get independent, maybe to even bring in, a hand miller or something. So I'll walk behind Miller to do a spot or two. So I think they'd do that, sort of as a favor.
Okay. Any questions from council? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 All that oppose? Hearing none that oppose, motion passes. All right. Moving forward to Crafton Boulevard Grow Separation Project. It's to award the Crafton Boulevard Grow Separation Project to base bid and additional bids number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 to Independent Enterprises Incorporated for a total bid amount of $3,273,899.75 for the Crafton Boulevard Grow Separation Project to Independent Enterprises, Incorporated.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All right, questions, comments? I'll just say, I never thought we'd get to this point. It's a long road. Coletta, you've been here with me for the duration, followed by Brad and the mayor and Engineer Minsterman. So thank you. Thank you to everybody in the public and the Planning Commission for helping us move this thing forward, and all of our supporters at Alcoastan, at the DEP, and our state reps and state senator. It just really means a lot that we are able to get this point. So we'll have hundreds of hours of work to get to where we are. So I'm very hopeful for the future of Crafton. This is just with like the South Grandview, it's a tip of the spear here to get us in compliance. And I know Engineer Minsterman's following along with the consent decrees, and we are going to be in a great place comparatively to some of the other communities that have not done their due diligence and planned as well as we have. So again, thank you to council as a whole, previous councils, administration members, community members to get us to where we are today.
Right, and just a follow-up reminder to the entire community that approximately 80% of this is that, well, it's a little bit less than that because of the few things that we've added in, but a substantial portion of this is being paid for by the GROW grant, and that the rest of it is our funds that are part of the bond. So there is not going to be any additional burden to the community for this.
Great. Do we have a timeline of start and finish for the project?
I'm sorry. Rick, do you want to take that?
Yes, looking for that right now, seeing if I can find that in the engineer's report.
Just as a quick overall, Mr. Chandler, we'll be starting probably within the next month. We hope to get the section in front of the school done before they go back, and then this will go into next year. So it'll finish up in probably the summer of next year.
Yes. So I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about the paving program. So it's one project off. Crafton Boulevard, I do know a lot about. So
yeah,
we are going to, I mean, the work is anticipated this May, in a month or so is when it'll start. It'll go a full year and probably into the fall of next year. Most of the heavy work will be done within the year, but there's, lots of touch up and lots of finish work to get all the punch list items out. So this is going to be year minimum, year and a half maximum, somewhere in there.
Thank you.
and Mr. Crown has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, Rick and Doug, if there can be some explanation or at least communication with the residents. I live up off of Clearview, and I know Phil does too, but that's the primary source to get the Crafton is the extension down. You can't get out on the upper end by Josephine Lawson. Is there any plan on what to do there, and what's the total time frame to shut that whole thing down? You know, because then you're going to have to go down the other way through Noblestown and Baldwick and whatnot.
There'll be a traffic plan prepared by the contractor. Obviously, they can't landlock anyone at any time. So it'll either be closing a section of road with a reasonable reroute, or alternating traffic, opening up one side of the road, working on it, allowing traffic, with flaggers on to traverse the road. So those things will be worked out as it relates to a traffic road closure, detour, and control plan. So we'll have that information. They'll make a submittal to us. We'll review it, talk with your staff, even council if you're interested, and let you know what the plan is for that. So
There will be notification to all residents throughout all aspects of it. And yeah, we'll give notification, advanced notification.
Yeah, and we're going to be working very closely with the school district, just as we have through this entire process, because the tankage for this project is actually going to be on the school's property that's across the street. So there's going to be a lot of communication, and hopefully we can work with the fire department to get some bulletins out there, and we'll have some additional conversation about other digital bulletin boards that we may propose for the borough to help with these projects as they proceed.
The school has been participating in some pre-bid and meetings, so that they are aware, and we've been working with them. And in fact, just had a conversation with getting one of the announcements up on that by the playground. So they are well aware, and we'll be working with them throughout the process.
Excellent. All right, any other questions from council? Do I see? I only can see some of the panels here.
No, there's no
Doug?
hands up.
Okay. Therefore, with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All that opposed?
Aye.
I was an aye vote. Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted. No, I'm not an A.
Okay. Do I hear any that opposed? None that opposed? Motion passes. And thank you for everybody for their due diligence and hard work on this project. And we will keep the public apprised of the events as we move forward. All right, that's the end of the business agenda. We're gonna move forward to the discussion items. We have some conversation around standing committees. We have 2 members of council that have just been appointed. We have some positive news in the overall community. Things are starting to normalize, and we're coming out of an environment where we've been fully focused on handling the pandemic as a committee as a whole, but we're going to be breaking out into these standing committees, and we have the Finance Administration, the Community Services and Infrastructure, the Community Recreation and Community Events, and the Emergency Preparedness standing committees that we've proposed. I've been working with Ms. Perry and the new members and the members of council to evaluate what our needs are. And I've reached out to Ms. Perry, and as everybody's known, she's been working with me as ad hoc, leading the finance committee. That's the one committee that we really have had through the majority of this. So she's volunteered to continue the torch there. The community services and infrastructure, I reached out to Mr. Chandler, and he has expressed interest and volunteered for that. For communication, recreation, and community events, we discussed this with Mr. Oliverio, and he seemed obliged. Speak now or forever hold your peace. And then Ms. Perry reached out to Mr. Amendola. In the past, he served as a chair for the Public Safety Committee. We did a little reworking here with this and renamed it Emergency Preparedness to sort of give it more encompassing to help us coordinate with FEMA, and the other state, local agencies that will be needed if we ever have an event, and also work with the chief of police, and who is our emergency management coordinator and our mayor. So Mr. Amendola has accepted that chair. So with that, the folks that have been named here are going to be working with members of council to fill out the members of the group. So it's going to be incumbent upon the chair to work with members of council, and if there's a member of council that would like to work with the chairs named here on these items or these standing committees. I encourage everybody to pick up the phone, send one another an email, and help one another as we try to solve the problems and look forward to the future for the community. There was a memo prepared. Ms. Perry, do you want to go into the details of the memo?
So basically with Mr. Sample's help and with our essentially our finance consultant organization, they are the ones that came and said that we really need to have these committees standing so that they've got go-to people to help them with these initiatives that we've been talking about. So Mr. Sample and I have been working the last earlier part of this week, late last week, on definitions, descriptions of these committees. That document was put in OneDrive. So I would, entertain any, not to draw this out really long, really long. There's the descriptions of the committees. And if anybody has any questions about them, happy to answer. I'd also like to point out that we have under each of these a number of ad hoc committees that are being asked to work on immediate, short range, mid-range projects. I think you mentioned under the infrastructure committee, we're going to have an ad hoc committee to work on the public works rehab and expansion, and to work with that grant. Under finance and administration, we will have an ad hoc committee to pull together all of the various projects and capital improvement things that we've been talking about into a cohesive 5-year capital improvement plan so that we can make that part of an overall improvement in how we are going to be reporting to the council as well as to the community on the finances and the financial commitments and activities of council, so of the borough, so that there'll be, a formal 5-year capital extension. I'm sorry, the capital expansion plan, but very largely that's about pulling together the various things we have already been working on into a cohesive whole. And then our third ad hoc committee, just a second. Doug, help me out here. I kind of
The emergency preparedness or communication?
communication.
Communication, yeah.
Ad hoc. Yep. So did you want to mention what that was?
Oh, yes. So this is, we have gotten a grant through DCNR from the state to basically update our comp plan, but it would be a Parks and Recreation Master Site Plan for our current parks that we currently have. So part of that is to create a steering committee. And we've talked about adding planning, a couple members of Planning Commission, the Parks and Rec Board, as well as 2 members of council, and then 3 members of the public. So this ad hoc committee would be the start of that steering committee and get that process rolling so we can begin to.
And then as Philip mentioned, any members of council who, may or may not be chairing one of these committees, please reach out if there are any other, any of these committees that you'd like to help out. The structure is that we can have a maximum of 3 council members on any of these committees. Our president is an ex officio member. of anyone that he is not an official member of, so that, but he would not be a voting member of the committees. The other thing that I want to stress about these committees is they're designed for us to be able to do additional work that we can't do just in these 2 meetings, but in all cases, any recommendations coming out of these committees that require council approval or resolutions, most of that will be brought to council by the committees, and we'll have the committee recommendations, and council will decide to act or not on those recommendations. Does anybody
So
have
in
any
other words, it
questions?
works like what we see on C-SPAN, where you have a judiciary committee who makes the recommendations to the body at large.
Essentially, yes. So I
So
just
it's
wanted to
nothing-
stress that.
Yeah, so what we're doing here is directly in line with all other legislative bodies in the Commonwealth and at the federal level.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
And even though they are not strictly required to be open meetings, we like to recommend that we at least advertise when these committee meetings are going to be. They can continue to be on video,
Usually,
Zoom, etc. And that we have consulted with our solicitor, who has said that if we were to announce the schedules of the meetings, in our community announcements at our various meetings, and put them on Savvy Citizen, just so there's that there is visibility and open opportunity for interested community members to attend as they do our regular meetings.
excellent. So I'm going to just add on to the conversation because there's been some impromptu conversation among different members of council and community members, and just planning for the future. We're going to be investigating and investing in the technology that will allow us to have a hybrid approach, that will allow us to have the opportunity for a digital meeting, but allow us to still comply with the requirement when the emergency declaration is rescinded, where we have to have a quorum in the room for regular meetings. But that technology can be used, should be used for the Zoom, for the committee meeting. So whether it be Zoom or another application, that's where I believe we need to go. I believe there's a lot of folks in the community that have really benefited from tuning in online. The more participation that we can get in our regular meetings and with these committee meetings, I think the better off we'll be, and the more ideas that will receive and hopefully grow the community base. So I just wanted everybody to know that the research is underway. We're going to try to bring something forth, and if any member of council or Mr. Corbel, if you've seen something in your travels that you would like to recommend to us, please do. I mean, I know there is one company that's cold called me like 15 times now. It's called Granicus. There's other companies that offer these digital offerings. I'd be very interested in hearing what's available to a municipality our size.
So basically, you're talking about the ability to have hybrid meetings, that when we go back to being able to have meetings in person, that we are also able to continue the digital portion to serve community members, that it's more convenient
Yeah.
to attend in that way. Right,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think it's fair to say, Phil, that Zoom is probably here to stay. So what you're asking for is probably the model that most large organizations are going to move towards. So I see no problem with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of communities are looking at that. As Mr. Lavasser said, it's really just an investment in probably some technology and AV equipment in your council chambers, which, with the bond issuance, you all will have the funds, I think, to make those upgrades. But happy to chat with anybody about that as we get to that point, which, should be at some point later this year.
Okay.
So Mayor,
Boyle?
Yes, question for Mr. Minsterman. I received 2 calls concerning Union Avenue between Steuben and Cross Street. You heard anything that I can pass on?
Yes, good news and bad news. What do you want first?
Oh, always go for the bad news.
All right. Bad news is, looks like that project's going to have to be delayed a year. Because,
Why?
and that relates to the good news, apparently there is a utility company, I think it's the gas company, Doug, you may remember, that is saying they want to replace the line. So if we hold out and they confirm they want to replace the line, and depending on where the line is, if it's in one of the lanes, we can get the entire lane replaced. And if that happens, then that frees up enough money, we could actually possibly reconstruct the whole street instead of patching the bad spots, which is the plan for now. So I think if we're waiting to hear back from the utility company on where the road is, or where the utility is, and then we can formulate a plan on how we can benefit from that and move accordingly. Now, if they're in the sidewalk or if they're in an area outside of the road, then we move back to, working on including that road in the reconstruction program of some of the other streets for 2021.
Well, would you make sure, or can you make sure that the patching process that goes on in 2021 be more than just cold patch? In other words, the maintenance that's done on that street, that they, 2 weeks after the asphalt's put in those cracks, that it doesn't pop out or more concrete blow out?
It wouldn't be asphalt patches. These would be saw cut. We'd saw cut the joints and pour concrete and put rebar and dowels in for the section. So it would not be just fill the crack patch. This would be it's just not bad enough to tear the whole thing out unless you get half of it funded from a utility company, and the street opening permit opens that door. So it's a little bit of a, cross your fingers and see if we can get it to work out. But like I said, if it doesn't, then it'll be a pretty rigorous patch. Patch is a bad word. There'll be replacement of slabs that are in bad shape, and then there'll be replacement of joints and saw cutting out the bad concrete and replacing with new.
Thank you, sir.
Sure thing.
Thank you. All right. Are there any other discussion items?
Yeah, I mean,
If
I
not,
still,
I'm gonna proceed.
sorry, go ahead. I wanted to follow up more with along the lines of that 64 Grandview. Even though the motion's been voted on and passed, but the question about, when we're sending things into a sheriff's sale, when we're trying to push some of these properties into the marketplace, it's still something that, I think we need to be addressing in a more thorough manner, because, for all the reasons I've said in the last 4 years, you've heard me, we don't really have the properties to give away. We can't knock everything down. So the ones that are bad, I grant you, and I want to see those knocked down as much as the next guy, but so there's going to be people out there that we're going to take on properties for, if we make it worth their while to do so, I think we should try to do that.
I agree. Ms. Perry, your hand was raised.
Yes, I just wanted to mention that from a financial analytics standpoint, that work is already underway. I have been working with a supplied delinquent tax list that Mr. Sample was able to secure for us. We've been doing some analysis with that, looking at the number of years in arrears, and beginning to tee up what properties we want to look at more closely, so that we can build up and start moving things um, to sheriff's sale. And if you are interested in taking a look at that and helping with that effort, just reach out to me, and I'll be happy to show you what I've been working on.
Yeah, my interest is definitely there. I mean, where are we at with coming up with some kind of, this is an open-ended question to Doug and to Steve, and then to Rick, whoever can answer it. But you know, I know some places have like a blanket agreement with their other taxing bodies, like the school district, to help facilitate these processes forward with the sheriff's sale. And you know, for some of these properties that owe back taxes to Crafton, and we can assume that they're largely going to owe to the borough and to, to the school district and to the county. So where are we at with coming up with an agreement, so we don't have to take one of these each case by case to the school district, for, let's say, or you know, maybe someone out there can enlighten me to this process, so we don't have to knock down things on Grandview.
Yeah. What we've discussed in the past is, you know, the manager just needs to send over the list to the school district, and the school district has a law firm that does collections, and we just need to make sure that that law firm moves things forward. And if there's something that the district doesn't want to move forward on, then they can kick that communication back to us. I know over the past year, you know, the school district and the borough have been, you know, focused on various items, but this is, you know, at the forefront. So I would recommend to the council that we work with the interim manager here to push that list forward. We know who or what properties are on that list. We just need to, you know, keep up on it every, you know, 2 to 3 weeks and see what the progress is. Because as we've seen in the past, as with like 96 Noble, you know, if we, you know, fire some emails back and forth, and we have the solicitor, you know, do some due diligence, and we'll work with the manager's office, we do get results, and the sheriff's sales can be fruitful for the borough. We actually avoided having to demo 96 Noble. So we just need to, you know, instruct the solicitor and the interim manager here to push this forward, and we have to keep them on the ball. So are you guys?
So is the school district okay with these being moved then? Is that what I'm hearing? Because I didn't.
My conversation with the president of the school board is yes. And
all right. So the next step is to get a list from Doug and as to what we have to move to sheriff's sale then, and then vote on it.
So basically what we need to do is a little more analysis and refine the list. And as I said, reach out to me and we can work on that and move it forward. I mean, part of it is being able to see how far in arrears a property is, and then we want to take a look at it to make sure that we, you know, that it isn't condemnable, that it might be rehabable, and begin that movement. Another piece that we can, that from looking at this list, you know, I know that you've mentioned that we don't have a lot of buildable land, and you may actually be surprised at how much we do have, because we have pockets, and actually a substantial number of them, of vacant lots in various parts of the borough that are owned by dead people who have probably been dead for 50 years, and they are still on our list as delinquent tax properties. So I've started discussing with, you know, with the manager and various other people to find out how do we get control of these properties. And so that's another thing that I can show you, with the idea that there, you know, that there may be more developable land here, whether it's for individual residential pieces, or whether there's some contiguous pieces that might be more interesting for, for multi-family build outs or that sort of thing.
I mean, I'd certainly like to work with you on that for sure. But I think it's important to have a transparent conversation here about what this process is going to look like, because I think a lot of folks are interested in, if you are in proximity to something that needs to be sold for sheriff sale because it's either abandoned or
right. And then there's the side yard projects as well. So, as I said, that I've just
but
over the
those
last
take
couple of weeks
several
been
years. Those take several years, so.
However, there are probably residents that might be interested in them. So, I mean, there's a multi-pronged approach to take. And, the plan was to look at the list and begin to figure out what there is, and certainly to have a transparent conversation here as we, develop some strategies and discuss and make recommendations.
In the meantime, I can reach out to my counterpart of the school district and see what processes, and I'll work with Steve too, so we know once we identify the properties, we're ready to hit the ground in concert with the school district. So we can begin that process as you and Coletta work through the list.
All right, my last question here, and I'm very much the skunk at the picnic, so you have to all bear with me. What Coletta, and this is open-ended, whoever wants to answer can answer with the knowledge. What difference does it make if they're behind 1 year or 10 years on arrears? Because if you go through a sheriff's sale process, and correct me if I'm wrong, and you get taken to sheriff's sale, so they take my house to sheriff's sale because I'm 1 year behind, but then I pay my back taxes, it's not in sheriff's sale anymore. So from my point of view, my vantage point, and my question is, what doesn't matter? It shouldn't matter. If we take them to
It does matter
sheriff's sale,
because there are expenses involved, and it's also the perception. Are we trying to take property from people who are a little bit behind? I mean, I think what we are kind of looking at is, what do we start looking at it through, 3 to 4 years? I mean, I don't think that it's actually been defined, but I certainly don't think that we want to be perceived that we're going after anybody who's a year behind and we're going to throw them in sheriff's sale and throw them out of their houses.
but no one has that perception because the court will allow you to pay your taxes and get out ad hoc, so to speak.
Yes, but there are expenses about trying to bring something to sheriff's sale, and why threaten it, as opposed there are other ways to help people get into, who, especially coming out of this year of COVID and the economic situations that we're in, to make payment plans and other arrangements for people who really intend to stay in their house and intend to pay their taxes. And so, it's not that simple.
Hold on, may I interject? And I think Moore will help me out here. With regards to sheriff's sale, can you add a little more color to that, because it's not as simple as buy somebody's property.
It isn't as simple.
Can you go over that process?
We're taking you to sheriff's sale, and the next month you're at the sheriff's sale. Like, that's just not how it happens. Typically, before that happens, there are legal pleadings that need to be filed. Taxpayers can answer the pleadings. They have an opportunity to pay the taxes, make an arrangement with the taxing bodies before it ever goes to sheriff's sale.
That's my point.
The other thing that I will say about sheriff's selling is, and I've said this from the beginning when we've discussed this, and I know we've made good progress so far, is every property isn't a candidate for sheriff's sale, because there are some properties that just aren't saleable, and all you'll do is end up paying fees to whatever our fee arrangement is with Jordan Tax or the school district, etc. It'll go through that process, and then we'll be out money, and the property will never sell. Yeah, I've told you all before that a lot of times, and I think we dealt with this on that property that's on the street adjacent to the Borough building, 96 Noble, I think it was, if you remember talking about that. It was like, maybe the best way is to try to find somebody that's interested, and then take it through the process so they could buy it out of the process. So there's a lot of ways to deal with this situation. And a lot of it, unfortunately, is case by case. And I think if you lose the case by case perspective, it could cost you more in the long run. And with Doug's eyes on it, my eyes on it, I think we'll be able to look at these and make a recommendation, and council can choose how to proceed. You can disagree with us and decide to push the issue, or maybe you're thinking we're being too conservative, but let us look at the issues, the properties, and make a recommendation. That's my suggestion.
Could you educate us all here on this subject a little further?
Mr. Kraus had his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, take it down. All right.
Okay, so just for clarification, let's say, for instance, I go to a sheriff's sale as a buyer. And
Philip, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Hard to hear you, Phil.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
That's better.
Okay. For our edification here, Steve, as in, let's say, you know, when I've done work in other states, let's say New Jersey, I go to sheriff's sale and I'm buying debt. Is that not how it works here in Pennsylvania, or do you get full title, or does the title become clouded, as in now you have a lien holder, like a mechanic's lien? Could you clarify that for me?
Yeah, so the first time a property goes through sheriff's sale, there's what's called the upset price. It's the term here in Pennsylvania, and that's basically the cost of the back taxes, municipal claims. If it's a mortgage foreclosure, it's potentially the balance on the mortgage. If the property does not sell the first time it goes to sheriff's sale, the taxing bodies can make a motion to the Court of Common Pleas and seek to sell the property what's called free and clear. And that means that following the sheriff's sale, whatever the high bid is, it will be distributed to the taxing bodies in a pro rata manner after the sheriff takes their share. And you get a quick claim deed. It's not a deed. It's not fee simple. There isn't it's not the best kind of deed to have, but that's for the purchaser to be concerned about. So a lot of times these properties go through the process at least twice because the upset price isn't reached, particularly if the property's in bad shape and there's a lot of back taxes.
So the question is, through scenario A or B, let's say scenario A, somebody buys the property or buys the debt at sheriff's sale, and you want to save your house. What would you have to do? Are you then dealing with that person that bought the debt or bought it,
No.
property at real?
You're done. If you're the owner and your house goes to sheriff's sale, whether it's the first time and someone pays off all the debts or the second time and it's free and clear, you are out of it. But what the homeowner has, the property owner has, is the opportunity to pay it all off when the legal pleadings come in the door. A lot of taxing jurisdictions will enter into payment arrangements, and they will just continue the sheriff's sale for several months at a time to give taxpayer opportunities to pay. Again, like I said, there's just a lot of ways to handle this, and every situation is different. The reason why the taxes aren't paid is different in every scenario. I mean, you'll get a lot of stories about folks that have fallen on hard times. You'll get stories about, properties that were, the owners are deceased and the heirs are spread out across the country and they just can't get back to Crafton or wherever to take care of it. So, there's a lot of moving parts in these. There's not an easy one-size-fits-all solution, but there are, I think, some very specific paths that I would say 95% of the cases would go down one of those several options.
All right. Well, I think we can take this conversation to one of the committees and then revisit at one of our future meetings.
Does Mr. Krause have another question or comment?
I do. Yes, you know me. Was 64 Nope or 64 South Linwood taken to sheriff's sale? Does anybody know that?
You,
South Linwood or South
Yeah,
Grandview?
I'm sorry, South Grandview. My apologies.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay, and how long has it been in arrears for?
I believe several years, Brad. I
Several
can't-
as in 2, because that's the Wikipedia definition of several, or several as in 7 or 8 or 9, 10. Does
I
anybody have-
think more. I think more than 5 years. I think the person.
So
who's mayor
more
said
than
it's been
5
deceased.
years, and I've been on council for 3, going on 4. You know, I think it's, my point of asking is this: I think it's I understand Coletta's perspective. I do agree with most of it, and I think that if some case-by-case basis came in front of this particular council, then we would enter into the appropriate agreements, or the court would enter in an appropriate agreement with anyone who wants to make the payments to save their properties. The goal is not to kick people out of their homes, but whether you're in Crafton or Pittsburgh or wherever, we haven't been building houses to meet the demand since well before I was born, and we do have a housing crunch. And so if you say, Philip, 5 years that house has been sitting out there in arrears, and we have not had a policy in place to at least test the marketplace to see who would want to take on a property like such as that, which is on a beautiful street in a great community with a great school and all of the things that we love about it. I know I look at the sheriff's sale lists, and I've seen some properties like that will be sold in a sheriff's sale, and people will pay above the upset price to get it. So now we've let it sit for 5 years, and we're going to knock it down. So to me, that's like totally unacceptable. And from my perspective, trumps any other perspective that we might have, at least in my opinion, that somehow a non-action is better than taking an action. Because if we take it to sheriff's sale and some of the heirs come out of around the country and decide they do want to keep it, and they will either put it back on the tax rolls, sell it on the MLS, or rent it, those 3 options are better. 2 options are better than the option that we have chosen, which is to do nothing and then knock it down. So I'm pretty, as a member of council, I'm just going to make it very clear that that's not acceptable to me.
Ms. Perry has her hand up.
Yeah, did we not, during that previous motion, give the direction to investigate the options? Our engineer told us we had plenty of time to do so. So I'm not sure that I understand your points at this juncture, because we did just a half an hour ago agree that we would look at this and that we would see if there were some other options for that property.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think, Mr. Krause, we understand your point. We have been doing things as the Borough of Crafton over the past, as you've been on council, we have at different intersections asked the solicitor and the managers to push things forward, and things have gone to tax sale. Things have not sold. There's a property. There have been several properties over the past 24 months that have quietly been transferred from one owner to another through the sheriff's sale. The process does work. Some of these are albatrosses, and people are risk averse because the one, let's say for the one up on Bar, rather large, not a great place to work on it. The roof went bad, issues, arose, and people were afraid to take it on. The free market didn't want to take it on. That's why in the past we've said, hey, let's look at the data. We're working with the engineer now, looking at some of this data coming in. We can see where we have some depressions in our assessed values, appraised values. There's a lot more data analysis that we can do now that we could have done, let's say, when we first got on council. So I think you're hitting on a very important note, but I wouldn't say that the councils of the past decade haven't been concerned about it. I think we've all been very concerned about it. It's just about which issue do you press on? And the thing is, as the solicitors noted, some of these things get drawn out forever. I mean, I think 4 or 5 councils were trying to address 96 Noble, and Mr. Minsterman, you could probably speak to that. I mean, I believe I watched President Hayes talk about that issue, and Ms. O'Connell and everybody's talked about these different properties, and it's a painful process sometimes. So, I mean, there have been some things that we can talk about, like conservatorship. Ms. Perry, you've brought that up to me, and we've looked into that, see what kind of tools there are. But I think the point that you're hitting on, Mr. Kraus, is we need to look at the data, we need to stay focused on it, and we can start listing the things in different areas. We can start presenting this information in different ways to the community, and maybe there will be eyes that see this and say, get an idea of, well, maybe I can invest in that part of Crafton and take leverage the work that the municipality is doing to improve the community as a whole. So I think there's a lot of things that we can continue to do proactively, and I would say that you've been very proactive, Mr. Kraus, on the item, and I appreciate you motivating everybody here and the new administration and then the new members of council to stay focused on this, because there are a lot of external cost to the community with blight that are detrimental to us all. And again, it goes back to the beginning of the conversation when we discussed building inspection, fire inspection. You know, we don't want to see something like Papa J's or that historic building that was in Carnegie, not Carnegie, McKee's Rocks, that burned to the ground when we first got on council. So I think we're moving in the right direction, and I don't want to belabor the point further. And we're gonna, have a discussion in our committees here on this item, and we can bring back some really powerful information through a PowerPoint, and working with Mr. Berner at Gateway Engineers, who is a GIS specialist, to work with some of the data that Coletta is data mining and working with as a knowledge worker here on this, to sort of illuminate, and working with Mr. Crown to sort of focus on some of these pain points that we have. So I think it's been a really productive conversation, but I'm going to ask kindly to move forward to community announcements. All right. So with that, I'm going to go to the Borough Administrative Office is now open to the public. Administrative staff is available during normal business hours from 8:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. to address all borough business. Residents wishing to conduct business in person are asked to come to the rear of the building. Please press the intercom/buzzer, and this staff will assist you. No one will be granted access into the building without a proper mask. In addition, there is a drop box in the rear of the building for any written correspondence. Administrative staff can be reached by phone at 412-921-0752, extension 10. Non-emergency police matters can be directed to the police secretary at 412-921-2016. And Mr. Sample, tomorrow is an exception. The office is closed tomorrow, correct?
Correct. We are doing a heavy cleaning of the office.
All right. So everybody, just leave a message, send an email, but tomorrow there's going to be cleaning at the office. So moving forward to the Crafton Public Library, that was reopened to the public on March 22nd, 2021. They're excited to be able to welcome you back into the building. Please visit the library's website for details concerning more. Fix this. This is there last time.
Oh.
Visit the website for more details. Any rate, the Crafton Pool will operate daily starting on Saturday, June 12th to August 22nd, August 28th and 29th, and September 4th to the 6th. Daily hours will be Monday through Saturday from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. and Sunday 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. All CDC, state, and county guidelines will be followed. And just as a note, the administration is very focused on this item. Intermanager Sample is working with the South Hills Regional Managers Group on staying up with what's going on in Allegheny County. Our case numbers have been going up, so hopefully, we'll see more vaccination for all groups. I know the health department of the Commonwealth is working on this, and there are more updates, but we all need to stay vigilant at this time and try to minimize the spread of COVID-19. So I know the Carlinton School District has been working very diligent. They've been addressing any of the issues that have popped up over at the schools. So good job over the school district, and we'll keep up the good work over here at the Crafton Borough. As noted at the last meeting, we have an extension of the local income tax deadline that has been extended to May 17th, 2021 to reflect the changes that were adopted by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and the US IRS. And then we have the Crafton Community Cleanup, backed by very popular demand. I know the Shade Tree Committee and the Planning Commission are all geared up and asked that we proceed with that. And I brought this up at the last meeting. So that will be April 24th, 2021 at Crafton Park from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Items being collected include the following building materials, not cinder blocks, guys. All right. Last year, somebody brought like a whole dumpster worth of cinder blocks. We're not disposing of your cinder blocks. Other bulk items, household clutter, yard debris, small appliances. Items not being collected are tires, rims, auto parts, refrigerators, AC units, paint, and electronic waste. Those items can be addressed through waste management, and they can either help you pick them up or point you to the right recycling facility. So at this time, we have an opportunity for public comment. Citizens may address the Crafton Borough Council on any issue. Only residents and taxpayers of the Borough of Crafton will be permitted to address the council. Comments on non-agenda items will be taken at the end of tonight's meeting. Speakers will be permitted to speak for a maximum of 3 minutes. Groups of people will be required to designate a spokesperson to represent them before council, who may speak for a maximum of 5 minutes. Please state your name and physical address for the record. So somebody help me out with the chat
Yes.
room.
I've got it. I don't see any hands up. So those in attendance, please raise your hand. We will. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, no public comment.
All right, with that, thank you, and I adjourn this meeting. Great job, everybody. Have a good evening.
See you
Okay.
all. Good night.